Well, now we're at the last day of June 2025, June 30th. Good day, everybody. Let's get into what's happening in the real estate world. I did compile all of the real estate data. What I did is I pulled the last 7 days of real estate inventory and information from the Santa Clarita Multiple Listing Service. So you'll be able to see everything that's gone on in the past 7 days. It helps buyers and sellers make much better decisions when it comes to real estate and all of those particular related topics. I'll also talk a little bit about loans and lending, talking about lending guidelines, because I'm not a lender, but it is important that you team up with somebody that is local to the market, probably recommending a mortgage broker of sorts, just because they have more access to money and they might end up saving you a little bit on interest rate and also fees. But we'll talk about that in just a moment. So here, I did post this up this morning. Just wanted to get into some real estate data, what's going on. Here's the 7-day forecast, and you can see these particular properties and this particular movement. So right now, coming soon listings, six listings are poised to be coming soon. So they'll be entering the market anywhere from 0 to 21 days. That's something to look at. If you're not seeing these listings, ask your agent. Say, hey, listen, Jack, Jane, whatever their name is, have them send them to you. They can set that up via email. You're not going to see these on the syndication sites. You're not going to see them on realtor.com. You're not going to see them on Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, any of these others. You're just not going to see these listings. They have to be sent to you. If you don't have an agent, you don't have those coming soon listings at your disposal, please reach out to me. I'll be happy to do it. You can go to Santa Clarita coming soon. Let me see what I did here. Correct, SantaClaritaComingSoon.com, and you'll be able to see those listings. I'll be able to send those to you. Just give me kind of what areas you're looking for. Don't really need a price range unless, it's not going to be overwhelming because the number just isn't that many. All right, so just looking at the market, we have 90 properties that have had their prices changed. A majority of these are reductions in listing price, but those reductions in listing prices doesn't equate to reductions in actual sold prices. Understand that this market isn't entering that realm, not at least yet. We're going to need more inventory, and we're going to need some kind of additional economic instability. We're not seeing that. In fact, it seems like the economy is getting better. The rumor is the Fed funds rate is going to be dropped. That could impact, as it typically does, the actual mortgage interest rate, although the mortgage interest rates typically base more on the 10-year bond in that particular entity, but still continue to watch. If they do drop that Fed funds rate, then that's going to translate into potentially lower mortgage rates. And if that happens and they come down a couple points, which would be huge, that would end up being rates in the 4s. And I'll tell you what, if you're a buyer and you're waiting until that moment, it could be a little bit of a headache. It's your choice. But if in fact that does happen, I do know that the real estate listings we see in the 700s, 787 as of this morning, in all of Santa Clarita Valley will be down to 400 and 500 levels, as we saw January, or ended out back in 2024, ended up that year. Those were those numbers. So we've gone up quite a bit since then. But if that mortgage rate's adjusted, you're going to see every single market across the continental United States start to explode. So there's that. All right, let's look at the sold inventory just real quick. And we have 73 that closed this last week. People are saying real estate isn't moving, nothing's happening. Oh my gosh, the end of the world's coming. That's not true. We're not seeing that. We're seeing that we still have houses closed and selling every single week to buyers. And also we have new listings coming onto the market. Now, our absorption rate, it's going to depend on the week. Some weeks, as of late, we've had more homes sold than homes added to the market, and vice versa. It just depends on the week. This past 7 days, we happen to have had more housing added to the market for sale at 90 versus the 73 that have closed escrow. Still a very healthy market. In fact, the market itself is starting to kind of level out a little bit, where buyers held a lot of advantage in the past, even more than they do now. They still have a majority of the advantage currently, but we're seeing that buyers are becoming a little bit more picky because there are a few more houses to choose from. But when you are a seller and you have that really unique property, things that don't fit within the regular mold out here. For example, I'll give you a few ideas. Single story residences. I was doing the numbers a couple of days ago. Maybe it was yesterday. You can pull that up. But single story homes, yeah, that's the ultimate guide to finding single story homes. I did this one here. a couple days ago. And one of the things I'll tell you, the percentages of single story homes are actually very low. So a quarter of the real estate listings, 25.4% of the market. And I ran through all of the single family residences yesterday or day before, whenever I did this, a couple of days ago, whenever I was June 29th, so that was yesterday. So I pulled all of the inventory for single family residences, not condos, not townhomes, just single family homes. That came out to 493. A quarter of that, 25.4% of those houses are single story. So again, if you're a seller wanting to sell a single story house, you're going to be able to carry a premium with that because they're just not very common in comparison to two-story. Why would anybody want a single story? A lot of reasons. Knees. Their knees hurt. So going up and down stairs, some people don't want to do it. Also, having a singular level, maybe you have better control over family members. Maybe you have those teenage folks that like to escape in the middle of the night. Maybe it's easier to keep track in that regard. Single story, just nicer for a lot of people. Usually everything's on that particular first level, but people love two stories too. We just don't see as many single stories hitting the market for sale, so they do carry a little bit of a premium. Something else that people look at, and if you go to new housing and look, you're going to run into the same situation that I'm going to explain. At new housing, they charge lot premiums for view lots and larger lots, depending on where that particular lot's located. If you have a lot that has the ability to have a pool and a yard and RV and a view and at the end of a cul-de-sac, well, you're stacking things up there. There's a lot more value in that particular lot than something that's just on a street without a view, maybe backs up to a hillside. So there are differences in real estate listings. A lot of the syndication sites don't actually see those values. They're looking in a particular neighborhood. They're not looking at a particular piece of property and extracting all the value out of it and then looking at what the other ones have sold for historically. And those properties that have these additional amenities, these additional location factors, if you will, and they're not adding those to those other properties to give good values or how much in difference these properties should be listed for. So when you're looking at the syndication sites and you're pulling values and trying to figure out what a good offering strategy would be, my suggestion is you also need to extract the other things that makes the property unique, things that typically you can't change in time. You're not going to be able to capture more real estate square footage of your lot. You might be able to expand the house. You might be able to go up another level potentially if it happens to be single story. You can do things like that. You can improve it. You can add things. You can change things. But usually that piece of real estate, that yard is the yard. You might be able to move things around or, try to reposition or claim back some property if it happens to have a little bit of a hill, whether it's an incline or a decline hill in back. But that's very cost consuming. There's a lot of money that you have to pay to be able to capture back land, to add retaining walls or put more, pillars in or whatever it may be. So typically, you're not going to be able to add to it. So looking for those properties that carry these special properties, just huge, big deal. All right. So looking at that, that's where we are currently. And if you look at these numbers here, you can see canceled, the properties that have been put on hold and withdrawn. The canceled and the withdrawn properties, those are properties that aren't for sale anymore. As a buyer strategy, if I have a new buyer coming to me and they give me their criteria, something else that I consider is I look at these historical properties that have canceled and withdrawn from the market. And what I do is I include those in my preliminary search for them, just in case there's one that matches their needs, the information that they give me, so that I can bring that back to them and say, there's a potential property here that was canceled or withdrawn from the market. Let me find out that particular seller situation and see if I can get us an exclusive showing for that property and maybe write an exclusive contract on it. There are more than one way than just looking at the for sale inventory out there. So make sure you find an agent that's willing just to do a little bit more work for you, so you know what's happening in the market and you're not limited to just what the multiple listing service shows you. You'll actually be able to see properties that maybe no other agent was able to deem worthy because they just either didn't have the knowledge or experience. I've been doing this since 98. There are a lot of different tricks that one can do. In addition, if somebody's looking for a particular type of residence in a neighborhood, a specific elevation, if you will, what's to stop me? Now, this isn't the ploy and game that a lot of people encounter. You live in a neighborhood, for example, in Valencia or Stevenson Ranch. Well, it doesn't really matter where. And somebody door knocks you and says, hey, I'm a real estate agent. I have a buyer. A lot of times that's used as a clever marketing tactic. Basically, I have somebody that wants to buy your house. Do you want to sell? Would you consider it? Can I send you some comps? These sorts of things. That's a great pitch, right? But does that agent really have a buyer? So what I do when I go, and I don't ever do that just to market myself. I only do that when I have a specific buyer that's looking for a particular piece of property. Maybe they've already driven the neighborhood. Maybe they've taken down some property addresses. So you know what? I like this house located at 1234 at the corner of Anywhere and Ware Street. I love that house. I really need to have it. Then I can go do my door knocking, have my strategy. I have my buyer portfolio put together. I'll create an actual letter that has the buyers on it with particular information that we deem proper. And I'll go by and I'll say, listen, this isn't some kind of a clever marketing thing. This isn't me like most agents that might come by and they say they have a buyer and really they don't have a buyer. I have a specific buyer very much interested in buying a house like yours, or a house that's very similar to yours. And there's nothing for sale for them right now. So I'm coming around. I have a specific flyer with my buyer's information on it. Would you be interested? Before I give you their information, would you be interested? Is this something that you might be considering? And if they say, well, we've been thinking about it. I say, these are great people. They're wonderful. I've talked to them. We've had a sit down chat. We've been looking at real estate, but this could be the one. Would you like me to get something set up? Would you like that to happen? And a lot of times they say, sure. And then we work out the particulars on how that transaction could potentially take place. Now, I'm not going to promise you the world and deliver you, skunk crap. If in fact this works out, great. Usually though, those particular sellers, if they're considering selling, I might be able to get that listing, but they're going to want to go on to the entire market to see what kind of activity they're going to be able to get and what kind of offers they're going to be able to generate by having that house put on the market for sale and then having all the advertising and all the marketing put into place on that specific listing, so they can make sure that if in fact the buyer I have is really the most qualified, really the best, then they'll go with that. But ultimately, it comes down to, if it's a hot property, buyers will be battling it out. Right now, even with the interest rates where they are, before the Fed drops anything as we close out June, last day of June as a reminder, 2025, even where it is now, buyers are still out there, battling it out on properties that have those specific things that they're looking for, especially if there's been nothing for sale in a particular neighborhood for quite a while. You couple that with a potential interest rate reduction. Oh my gosh, the market's going to go nuts. That's where we are currently. Watch out for yourselves. Make sure your agent is doing more than just setting the system and forgetting it. Been in real estate a long time. I've seen a lot of these types of strategies. It takes more than that. And I think as a real estate buyer and as a real estate seller, whatever side you're on, you're worth that. Anyway, check out SantaClaritaOpenHouses.com. I do these every single day, so please check those out. This is the snapshot for the 7 days. I get into it quite a bit more and explain quite a bit here as far as the market. And I'll be back tomorrow doing this very same thing. Now, one thing I will tell you in finality is talking about real estate lenders. I was mentioned mortgage brokers earlier. They have the access to pull on lots of different entities that loan money for mortgages. So you're not just stuck with Bank of America money or Wells Fargo money or Chase Bank money. They're actually able to pull on other resources. Credit unions historically aren't great at origination. I was with one of the credit unions that one of my former employers used, and it was a little sad. They were trying to get their origination business better. Origination is, in other words, them writing new loans on real estate resale. A new loan for a new client under a home buying situation, that's origination versus refinancing. Refinancing, credit unions are pretty good, but also the main banks that hold your particular note, if you're thinking about refinancing, might not be a bad option for you. I would check because they already have your loan anyway. They have all your information anyway. Maybe if they do a refinance, it would be less expensive than going somewhere else. Make sure you see the real number about what those costs. But back to it, there is an option for you to look at mortgage brokers, credit unions, and mainline banks. You're going to want to get that good faith estimate from them and find out what those charges look like. A lot of them aren't going to be able to produce that for you as a real estate buyer until they say you have identified a house. And I understand that. Make one up. Make up something that's in your price range, in your comfort zone, that has whatever the typical Mello-Roos, if you're looking at properties that happen to carry that kind of extra tax assessment, and also a homeowners association, if that's part of the properties you're looking for that have an HOA. Average everything out and then take it to them and say, all right, work me up a sheet on this. So then when you do your comparisons between lenders, if you're one of those shoppers, you do your comparisons, then it is apples to apples, so it does make sense. Same thing with real estate agents. If you're going out there and you're going to hire an agent to represent you and you get that breakdown on commission, find out where that works out. For these particular things, what would you charge? And then have them explain why. My reasoning is always this, especially when I ask, so you want to talk about commission? That's where you want to go with the conversation. Usually they say yes, but it makes them feel uncomfortable, and that's not my intention. My intention is just letting them know how important what that part of the conversation is. How important is what I'm making to do a service for a particular buyer or seller? How important it's everything. And it's important because you have a particular job or an employment, maybe you're an entrepreneur, but you're worth money as well, whatever that money is. And if I want to come to you, hiring you, and I want to discount you or cut you down in what you earn, then you have a choice. On my end, in the real estate world, it is about negotiation. And if I'm so quick to fold right in front of you when you're asking me to reduce hard-earned money and what I make, what am I going to do behind your back when I'm negotiating with the other side on the transaction? If I don't believe I'm worth what I'm asking you to pay me, when it comes to representing you on the other side, I'm probably going to be milk toast. Milk toast. Yeah, you put a piece of toast in milk and it gets all nasty, soggy. I'll probably fold. You want somebody that's going to stand up for what they're worth and what they earn. That carries a lot with it, folks. Anyway, you'll find anybody that'll do it cheaper. There is a lot of that in the world. And if that's the way you want to go, that's fine. It's your choice. But ultimately, there is a price to pay for something done well. And I know you've seen the memes out there looking at tattoos, for example. You see people with a particular tattoo, they want to get a Harley Davidson soft tail tattooed on their chest. And when they get done, it looks like an Italian Vespa. There you go. Everybody have a fantastic day. Thank you for watching my rant. I will be back tomorrow. And you let me know if you have any questions, comments, or anything else, and I'll be there. Be well. Connor with Honor, over and out.